The slap landed before the champagne stopped pouring. Mara Reed did not cry. She looked down at the blue banquet ledger beside her shoe and saw the one change that could destroy Lucian Viscari's empire before midnight. His fiancée had just humiliated the woman who knew every guest moved for her wedding, every table that had been altered, and every signature that should never have appeared in that book. Lucian had spent months calling Mara dependable, useful, invisible. Then 5 members of his board vanished from the ballroom, and his perfect wedding became the cover for a betrayal no one else could trace. Mara could leave with her dignity intact, or she could stay long enough to make the bride explain why a waitress had caught her moving an empire one dinner table at a time. The blue banquet ledger lay open on the marble floor. One page had folded beneath Mara Reed's heel. The bride's handprint burned on Mara's cheek, but she did not touch it. She bent, picked up the ledger, and checked the page before she looked at anyone else. That habit had kept expensive evenings from becoming disasters. Check the room. Check the timing. Check what moved. Then decide who deserved your words. Around her, the Viscari ballroom went too quiet. 300 guests watched a full-figured waitress in burgundy standing beside a bride in white silk. Vivian Rusk smiled as if she had corrected a stain. "You do not interrupt the bride," she said. Mara closed the ledger. "You removed 5 guests from their assigned tables." Vivian's smile tightened. "I improved the seating. You changed it after the service briefing. I changed it because I can." Lucian Viscari stood near the altar platform with his hands folded before him. His tuxedo was perfect. His expression was not. "Mara," he said, low and even, "take 5 minutes in the staff corridor." The words landed harder than the slap. Vivian had humiliated her. Lucian had made it convenient. Mara nodded once. "Of course, Mr. Viscari." She tucked the ledger under her arm and left before the bride could offer another polished excuse. The ballroom doors opened for her because staff knew when to move. The people who held the trays disappeared before powerful people had to notice them. Her oldest friend on staff, Tessa, caught up beside the linen shelves. "You should go home," Tessa whispered. "I will." "Mara, she hit you." "I know what happened. You should tell Lucian." Mara gave a small laugh without humor. He was standing 10 feet away. Tessa looked back toward the ballroom. "You think he did not see?" "I think he saw a problem he wanted removed before the photographers noticed." Mara set the ledger on the linen shelf. Inside, the evening service map had been written in her narrow, tidy hand. Each table change had a time. Each verbal order had a notation, because spoken instructions became lies when wealthy people panicked. She opened to the last page. At 7:42, Vivian had moved Arturo Bell from table 4 to the garden pavilion. At 7:44, she moved Diane Weller from table 6 to the library terrace. At 7:46, Malcolm Price had been redirected to the East Conservatory. At 7:47, Rena Vale had been placed in the champagne room. At 7:49, Gerald Moss had been assigned to a private family table upstairs. 5 names, 5 board members. 5 people scheduled to meet Lucian in the estate library at 11:15. Mara knew that meeting because she had built the late supper service around it. It was supposed to protect Viscari Transit from an emergency sale nobody wanted discussed during a wedding. People could hide motives. They could not hide a room reservation, a meal count, or a sudden demand for 5 separate security escorts. Mara traced the times again. Every change had been initialed VR. Every new location was farther from the library than the last. Tessa leaned over her shoulder. "Is that bad?" "It is deliberate." "What does it mean?" "It means someone is making sure those 5 people cannot be in the same room at the same time." Mara. Lucian stood near the kitchen doors. 2 security men waited several steps behind him, careful not to look interested. He did not enter the kitchen chaos. "I asked you to take 5 minutes, he said. "I did. You have been gone for 8. Then I owe you 3. "Mara," he said, "Vivienne should not have touched you. No, I will address it." "After the cake?" His jaw hardened. "That is not fair. It is exact." The kitchen fell quieter around them. "Tell me what you saw," Lucian said. Mara looked at the man who had just asked her to disappear for the convenience of his celebration. "You did not want to hear me on your ballroom floor. I am hearing you now." Because you saw the mark on my face. Because I know you do not cause scenes. The answer was almost an apology. Almost. Mara opened the ledger and turned it toward him. 5 members of your board were moved after the service briefing. Lucian glanced at the names. His gaze sharpened at the 3rd one. Who authorized this? Your fiancée. She handles the guest list. She does not handle the meeting in your library. His eyes lifted. Mara continued. Arturo Bell is waiting for a donor who was never invited. Diane Weller was promised a conversation with the senator's wife. Malcolm Price has been sent to inspect a vintage car that does not exist. Rena Vale is trapped in champagne photos. And Gerald Moss has been told you requested him upstairs. Lucian stared at the page. You are certain? I watched the cards get replaced. Why did you not come directly to me? Mara's mouth tightened. I tried. He had no answer. The service elevator chimed at the end of the corridor. A man in a charcoal suit stepped out with a slim silver case. Mara did not recognize him from the wedding staff. Nothing came through her service elevator without passing through someone's list. The man saw Lucian and smiled too quickly. Mr. Viscari, I was told to bring this to the library. Lucian did not move. By whom? The man's smile faded. Ms. Rusk. Mara looked at the silver case, then the kitchen clock. 8:13. The meeting was not supposed to begin for 3 hours. Lucian saw the same thing. Give it to me, he said. Inside were legal folders, a tablet, and a fountain pen in black velvet. At the top sat a document with 5 blank signature lines. Mara recognized the blue tabs, the same blue tabs Vivian had asked the florist to match for the place cards. Lucian read the first page once, then again. His face became very still. Who gave you this? He asked. Mr. Rusk, the messenger said. Vivian's brother? Yes, sir. Where is he? I was told he would meet the board in the library. Lucian closed the case. The sound was soft. It carried anyway. Mara watched the realization travel through him. The scattered board members, the false invitations, the early documents, the bride who had struck the one person keeping track of every change. Lucian turned toward Mara. You were right. Mara held his gaze. That does not fix what happened. No, he said. For the first time that evening, Lucian Viscari looked less like the man who owned the room than the man who had failed to see who was holding it together. And somewhere beyond the kitchen doors, his bride was still smiling for photographs. Lucian did not raise his voice. That was how everyone knew the night had changed. Lock the library, he told his head of security. Do not let anyone enter, and do not let anyone remove a document from it. The guard nodded once and left at a run. Lucian turned to the messenger. You will wait in the West office. I only delivered the case. I know. The man looked relieved for half a second. Then Lucian added, You will wait anyway. Mara held the ledger against her ribs. The blue cover suddenly felt heavier than a book should. Lucian looked at Tessa, then at the kitchen staff who had stopped pretending not to listen. Keep service moving, he said. Mara's face hardened. You do not get to issue orders to my team through me after sending me away. A silence opened between them. Lucian looked at her as if he had finally heard the shape of the offense. You are right, he said. Beyond the doors, the string quartet changed songs. The bridal party was preparing for the first dance. Lucian's head of security returned with a tablet. Bell is in the garden pavilion, he said. Weller is on the library terrace. Price is in the conservatory. Vale is in the champagne room. Moss has been escorted upstairs. Lucian's expression did not move. Bring them to the West conference room. The guard hesitated. Miss Rusk gave instructions that none of them were to be disturbed. Those instructions are revoked. The guard left again. At the far end of the corridor, Vivian appeared in the service doorway. Her gown followed her like a white wave. 2 bridesmaids trailed behind her, both pretending they were there by accident. She looked from Lucian to Mara, then to the silver case. What is this? Vivian asked. Lucian did not answer at once. He held up the document with the 5 blank signature lines. Why is your brother preparing a board agreement before the board is in the room? Vivian's expression changed by less than an inch. It was enough for Mara to see it. Annoyance first. Then calculation. Then the smile again. Mateo handles paperwork, Vivian said. Surely that is not a crime. No, Lucian replied. But removing every voting member from an emergency meeting may be. Vivian looked at Mara. The smile disappeared. This is because she made a mistake with place cards? No, Mara said. It is because you made 5 deliberate changes and signed every one. Vivian's eyes narrowed. You are a waitress. I am the person who knows where your guests are supposed to be. And that gives you the right to accuse me? It gives me the responsibility to report a broken service plan. Vivian laughed once. It was not a happy sound. Lucian, are you really letting the help turn our wedding into a staff meeting? Mara felt Tessa stiffen beside her. She did not look away from Vivian. No, Mara said. Your decisions did that. Vivian stepped closer. You should have left when he told you to. Lucian moved between them. Not dramatically. Just one deliberate step that made the line of his body impossible to cross. Do not speak to her again tonight, he said. Vivian stared at him. You cannot be serious. I am serious about finding out why my board is being separated. You are embarrassing me. Lucian's gaze went colder. You struck an employee in front of my guests. She insulted me. She asked a question. Vivian's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, the perfect bride looked frightened. Mara saw it and understood something important. Vivian had expected Lucian to protect the image of the wedding. She had not expected him to protect the truth. A phone vibrated in Mara's apron pocket. She stepped away from the argument and glanced at the screen. It was a message from Elaine Porter, the banquet director at the Halcyon Hotel. Are you still interested in the operations position? I can offer you a contract tonight. Mara had interviewed there 2 weeks earlier. She had kept it private because she did not like using one job as leverage against another. Another message appeared. My driver can meet you at the North Gate in 20 minutes. Mara stared at the words. A way out. A real one. Not a threat. Not a dramatic escape. A job with a better title, better hours, and a director who had spoken to her like a professional from the first minute. Lucian noticed her attention shift. What is it? Nothing that concerns you. His eyes flicked to the phone, but did not ask to see it. That restraint mattered. Mara slid the phone into her pocket. I am leaving at 8:30. Lucian looked at the kitchen clock. You do not have to stay another minute. That is not what I said. I know. His voice was quieter now. If you leave, a car will take you wherever you want to go. Vivian gave a bitter laugh. Now you are sending her away with a car? Lucian did not turn toward her. I am giving her the choice I should have respected 10 minutes ago. His phone rang. He answered it without taking his eyes from Mara. What happened? His security chief spoke fast through the speaker. Mr. Bell is gone. Lucian's posture tightened. Gone where? His wife says someone told him you canceled the meeting and sent a car. I did not. Neither did we. Mara opened the ledger again. Her finger moved over the blue ink. Arturo Bell. Garden Pavilion. 1 replacement dessert. 1 coffee service for 2. She looked up. Was he supposed to leave alone? Lucian ended the call. No. Then he is not in a car for the airport. She turned the page and found the note she had made at 7:42. 2 coffees, 1 lemon tart, a heated patio. The pavilion has a private gate, Mara said. It opens onto the old carriage drive. Lucian's eyes sharpened. Why would he be there? Because he was told he was meeting someone he trusts. Vivian went very still. Mara looked at her. The bride had stopped pretending to be offended. Now she was listening. And for the first time, she looked less worried about her wedding than about what Arturo Bell might already know. Lucian did not waste another second. Send 2 men to the carriage drive, he said. Send another team to the garden pavilion. No weapons in sight. No scenes. His security chief nodded. What if Mr. Bell is being forced? Then we bring him back safely, Lucian said. And we do not give my guests a reason to panic. Vivian folded her arms. You are turning a seating mistake into a security operation. Lucian looked at her. No, I am turning your choices into questions. Her face went pale. Mara kept her eyes on the ledger. Arturo Bell had not been moved randomly. None of them had. Each board member had been placed where the music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and a person could be delayed without anyone calling it a delay. Vivian had not only scattered the board, she had scattered their witnesses. Mara turned to the service schedule. Mr. Bell's dessert was sent out at 7:54. Lucian's security chief paused. What does that tell us? It tells us he was expected to stay in the pavilion. Mara ran her finger down the page. His wife was assigned to the ballroom for the father-daughter dance. His driver was moved to the north lot. His personal assistant was told he had requested privacy. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Who told the assistant that? Vivian's wedding coordinator. Vivian gave a sharp laugh. Now she is blaming my coordinator? No, Mara said. I am reading my notes. The bride stepped forward. You keep acting like that little book makes you important. Mara lifted her gaze. It does not make me important. It makes your lies organized. For one breath, nobody spoke. Then Lucian's phone rang again. He answered. Report. His security chief's voice came through tight and fast. We found Bell's phone near the carriage gate. Was he hurt? No. But there is a black sedan leaving the old drive. Lucian's head snapped toward the nearest guard. Stop it at the north road. The guard moved. Vivian reached for Lucian's arm. You cannot stop a guest's car because a waitress has a theory. Lucian removed her hand from his sleeve. Gently. Completely. She does not have a theory. She has a record. The difference landed in the room. Mara felt it. So did Vivian. A few feet away, Tessa was pretending to check the coffee urns. Her eyes met Mara's for a second. Tessa did not smile, but she stood a little straighter. Lucian faced Mara again. What else do you see? It was the first real question he had asked her all night. Not an order, not a request for calm. A question. Mara looked down at the pages, then at the color marks beside each altered table. Blue tabs. Blue flowers. Blue menu cards. Vivian's wedding palette had been called Midnight Blue and Ivory. Mara had thought it was only a design choice. Now she saw that every relocated board member had been placed at a table with one blue candle holder turned toward the door. A signal. A marker. A map for people who knew what to look for. The blue details are not decoration, Mara said. Lucian came closer, but stopped at a respectful distance. What are they? Instructions. She pointed to the page. Each person was placed beside a blue marker. Each marker is close to a service exit. Your board members were not merely separated. They were being moved in sequence. Vivian's eyes flashed. That is absurd. Mara did not look at her. Arturo was first. Diane was second. Malcolm was third. Rena was fourth. Gerald was last. Lucian looked at the clock. Why that order? Because Arturo is the oldest member. He trusts Mateo Rusk. If Arturo signs first, the others may think the meeting is legitimate. The service elevator opened again. This time, one of Lucian's guards stepped out with Arturo Bell beside him. Bell's gray suit was rumpled. His tie had been loosened. He looked embarrassed more than frightened. Lucian crossed the corridor in 3 strides. Arturo. Bell lifted a hand. I am fine. Where were you? In the carriage house. With Mateo. Bell looked toward Vivian. That pause answered enough. Lucian's face hardened. Why? Bell swallowed. Mateo said the board meeting had been moved. He said the paperwork was only a temporary protection. And he said you had already approved it. Lucian glanced at Mara. She understood what he was asking before he spoke. Did he sign anything? She asked. Bell looked at her. No. He wanted me to review it first. He said there was no hurry. Mara exhaled slowly. There was always hurry when someone said there was none. Lucian spoke into his phone. Find Mateo Rusk. A guard answered from the other end. We already did. Lucian's eyes went still. Where? In the library. With Miss Weller. Vivian's perfect posture finally collapsed. Only slightly, but Mara saw her fingers curl against the white fabric of her skirt. Lucian saw it too. You knew, he said. Vivian lifted her chin. I knew my brother was trying to protect this family. From what? From you. The answer surprised even her bridesmaids. Lucian did not move. Vivian's voice grew louder. You have been too cautious for years. You let people question every decision. You treat a family empire like a committee project. I was trying to make sure someone had the courage to act. Mara closed the ledger. That is not courage. Vivian turned on her. You do not get to speak. Mara's voice stayed level. You used a wedding to hide a business decision. You used staff as props. You used your guests as pieces on a board. And you hit me when I noticed. Lucian watched Mara instead of Vivian. That mattered more than Mara wanted it to. But she did not let it soften her. Not yet. His security chief returned with another message. Mr. Price has been found. He was in the conservatory. He says Mateo told him the meeting had been delayed. And Miss Vale? Still in the champagne room. She has been drinking with the senator's wife. Lucian's mouth tightened. Bring her to the conference room. The chief hesitated. There is one more thing. Lucian waited. Mateo has placed a call to a buyer. The call starts at 9. Mara looked at the clock. 8:32. Her driver from the Halcyon Hotel would already be waiting at the north gate. She could leave. She could step into a clean car and let the Viscari wedding ruin itself without her. For a few seconds, that was exactly what she wanted. Then she looked at Tessa, at the pastry assistant still trying to repair the broken sugar orchid, at the young servers who would be blamed if the guests learned the estate had lost control. Mara had spent too much of her life cleaning up damage caused by people who would never admit they made a mess. She would not stay for Lucian. Not yet. She would stay because the people below him did not deserve to pay for his blindness. Mara pulled out her phone and texted Elaine Porter. I need 1 more hour. Elaine replied almost at once. Take the hour. The offer still stands. Mara put the phone away. Lucian noticed. You are staying? For the staff, she said. Not for you. He gave one slow nod. I understand. No, Mara said. You are beginning to. The first dance music started in the ballroom. Vivian stared toward the doors. Her guests were waiting. Her photographers were waiting. Her perfect wedding was still moving on schedule. But Mara could now see the cracks beneath every polished surface. And Lucian Viscari had just learned the same thing. Lucian looked at the clock again. 8:35. 25 minutes before Mateo Rusk's call to the buyer. 25 minutes before a wedding became an acquisition. Bring every board member to the West Conference Room, Lucian said. Bring Mateo there too. His security chief lowered his voice. And Ms. Rusk? Lucian looked at Vivian. She may go anywhere on this estate. Without documents. Without her phone. And without speaking to another guest alone. Vivian's face turned white. You are treating me like a criminal. Lucian's answer was quiet. I am treating this as a betrayal. She laughed in disbelief. Over a business proposal? No. Over the fact that you used my name, my house, my employees, and my wedding to force a decision from people who deserved the truth. It was our wedding. Lucian's eyes did not soften. Not anymore. The words did not echo. They did not need to. The bridesmaids heard them. Tessa heard them. The nearest servers heard them. And through the open ballroom doors, a few guests turned toward the corridor, sensing that something had changed. Vivian looked as if someone had taken the air from the room. You would end this now? You ended it when you struck Mara. Lucian looked toward Mara as he said her name. Not to claim her, not to make her his excuse, but to name the line Vivian had crossed. Mara felt the difference. It did not erase the first failure, but it made the second choice visible. Vivian's expression hardened. You are doing this for her? Lucian shook his head. I am doing this because I should have done it before she had to prove I was wrong. For a moment, Vivian had nothing to say. Then she straightened her shoulders. You think she is special because she wrote down a few table numbers. Mara reached into the ledger and removed the carbon copy beneath the final page. The original service record had been written in blue ink. The duplicate copy carried the impressions of every card Vivian had replaced. Mara had kept it because all major events required a backup. One copy stayed with the floor manager, one copy stayed in the office, and one copy remained with the person responsible for knowing when a room was no longer safe to run. Mara held the duplicate out to Lucian. Your fiancée did not just move people. She created a sequence. Lucian studied the imprints. What am I looking at? Each board member was sent toward a different exit. Each route had a blue marker, and each person was expected to arrive at the library alone. Vivian scoffed. That proves nothing. It proves planning, Mara said. And planning is what tells the difference between a mistake and a trap. The security chief returned with Diane Weller. Diane was still holding a champagne flute. Her eyes widened when she saw the people gathered in the service corridor. Lucian? Did Mateo ask you to sign anything? Lucian asked. Diane lowered the glass. He said he needed my support for a temporary transfer. Did he say Arturo had agreed? Yes. Lucian's voice became colder. Arturo had not agreed. Diane looked at Vivian, then at Mara's ledger. And Malcolm. He was told Arturo and you had already approved it, Mara said. Diane's face changed. Then we were being used to validate each other. Exactly, Mara replied. The board members had not needed to be convinced by force. They only needed to be isolated long enough to believe everyone else had already made the decision. That was the machinery Vivian had built. A rumor placed at the right table, a false meeting moved to the right room, a friendly face waiting beside the right door. Mara understood it, because banquets had their own machinery. If one timing card changed, the wrong course reached the wrong guest. If one exit closed, the entire service line backed up. And if 5 people were separated, someone had planned where they would be when the truth arrived. Lucian studied Mara with a focus that made the corridor feel smaller. You saw all that from the service plan? I saw that nothing was being served where it belonged. A faint sound came from the ballroom. Applause. The first dance had ended. The guests were moving toward the cake table. The night was still trying to continue. Lucian's phone vibrated. His security chief glanced at the screen. Mateo is refusing to leave the library. Is he alone? No, Mr. Price is with him. Lucian took the phone. Put him on. A moment later, Mateo's voice came through. Smooth, confident, too confident. Lucian, you have 10 minutes to explain why you are holding a board member in my library. I am not holding anyone. Then let Malcolm walk out. A long pause followed. Then Malcolm Price spoke. Lucian, Mateo says the sale protects us from debt exposure. Mara stepped closer. Ask him which company is buying Viscari Transit. Lucian looked at her, then repeated the question. Mateo laughed softly. That is confidential. It is not confidential if you expect them to sign it, Mara said. Mateo went silent. Diane looked toward Lucian. He would not tell us either. Lucian's expression hardened. Put the documents down, Mateo. This is bigger than your feelings about a waitress. Lucian's jaw tightened. No. This is bigger than your assumption that nobody in my house matters unless they carry my last name. Mateo's voice changed. What did she tell you? Mara answered before Lucian could. Enough. You used the table plan to isolate 5 voters. You told each one the others had already agreed. You scheduled the call before the meeting so they would feel rushed. And you hid it inside a wedding because you thought nobody would challenge the bride. Vivian stared at Mara. There was no contempt left in her face now. Only anger. And beneath it, fear. You had no right, Vivian said. Mara looked at the bride's white gown, at the silk train dragging through a service corridor that had never been built for people like Vivian to enter. You were right about one thing, Mara said. I am a waitress. I notice what is missing. Lucian's security chief appeared again. Mr. Viscari, the ballroom manager needs you. Why? The guests are asking why the cake cutting has been delayed. Lucian looked through the open doors. The ballroom was full of faces waiting for a story. They had watched the bride smile. They had watched photographers capture perfection. They had not seen the service corridors, the scattered board, or the blue marks that turned a celebration into a trap. Lucian turned to Mara. You do not have to come with me. I know. You can leave now. Mara's phone buzzed again. Elaine's driver had arrived at the north gate. She could still walk away. Lucian did not block the corridor. He did not offer more money. He did not make a promise he could not prove. He simply stepped aside. The choice was hers. Mara looked at Tessa, then at Diane, then at Arturo Bell, who had returned from the carriage house with a face full of quiet humiliation. These people had been treated like pieces too. Mara did not want Lucian's wedding. She did not want his guilt, but she wanted the truth to be heard by the people who had watched her get slapped and said nothing. I will come, she said. Lucian nodded. For the record, Mara added, I am still leaving after this. You should, he said, and if you ever return, it will be because you choose to. Mara held his gaze. That was not romance, not yet. It was something harder to earn, respect. Lucian walked toward the ballroom doors. Then he stopped and faced the security chief. Bring Mateo Rusk to the ballroom. Without force unless he gives you no choice. The guard nodded. Vivian took a step forward. You cannot humiliate me in front of everyone. Lucian looked back at her. You humiliated yourself when you mistook silence for permission. Then he opened the ballroom doors. The music faded. 300 guests turned toward him. And beside Lucian Viscari stood Mara Reed, holding nothing except the truth she had written down. The ballroom became silent before Lucian said a word. The guests had expected a toast. They had expected cake, music, and photographs. Instead, they saw the groom standing beside a waitress in a burgundy uniform. They saw the bride at the edge of the room, pale beneath her veil, and they saw 5 members of the Viscari board being escorted toward the ballroom from different doors. Lucian did not take the microphone. He walked to the center of the floor and faced the room. My wedding will not continue tonight, he said. A murmur moved through the guest. Vivian's mother covered her mouth. One of the photographers lowered his camera. Lucian looked at Mara. Then he stepped aside, not behind her, not in front of her, beside her, with enough space for everyone to understand that the next words were hers. Mara had spent years speaking quietly because busy rooms only heard the people who demanded attention, but this room was listening now. She held up the blue banquet ledger. This book is a service record, she said. It tells us where each guest was supposed to be. It also records every change. She opened it to the final page. At 7:42, Arturo Bell was moved from his assigned table to the garden pavilion. At 7:44, Diane Weller was moved to the library terrace. At 7:46, Malcolm Price was redirected to the East Conservatory. At 7:47, Rena Vale was placed in the champagne room. At 7:49, Gerald Moss was sent upstairs. The guests looked from Mara to the board members. No one laughed. No one whispered now. These were not harmless changes, Mara continued. Each person was moved away from the others. Each person was told that an important meeting had been delayed, moved, or already decided. They were separated so that a business agreement could be presented as if it had already been approved. Matteo Rusk entered the ballroom between 2 security officers. His jacket was crooked. His confidence had finally left him. Vivian turned toward him. For 1 second, brother and sister looked at each other without any disguise. Then Matteo looked away. Lucian's chief counsel stepped forward from the west corridor. She carried the silver case. The proposed transfer was not authorized by the board, she announced. It will not be executed. Arturo Bell raised his voice from the crowd. I did not sign it. Diane Weller lifted her hand. Neither did I. One by one, the other members said the same. The room heard the answer 5 times. No, 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 no. Matteo tried to smile. You are all overreacting. I was offering a solution. Mara looked at him. You offered each person a different story. That is not a solution. That is a trap. Matteo's expression darkened. You think you understand business because you carry plates? Mara did not flinch. I understand systems. I understand that when one person changes the plan without telling the people who keep it running, someone gets hurt. I understand that you used people's trust as a shortcut. And I understand that a shortcut is still a wrong turn when it leads through someone else's life. Vivian stepped forward. Her wedding dress brushed the floor. You are enjoying this, she said. Mara looked at her for a long moment. No, I would have preferred to finish my shift, collect my pay, and go home without anyone touching me. I would have preferred that you listened when I asked why 5 guests had vanished from the floor plan. I am here because you decided that people beneath you did not deserve respect. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, she looked less like a villain than a woman who had built her life around being admired. But tears did not change the ledger. They did not erase the slap. And they did not make a planned betrayal into a mistake. Lucian turned to his security chief. Matteo will leave the estate with counsel present. The board will review every document and every communication connected to this transfer. Matteo's face tightened. You are destroying her wedding. Lucian looked toward the flower-covered altar. No, she destroyed it when she believed a perfect room mattered more than honest people. Vivian whispered his name. Lucian. He faced her. There was pain in his expression, but there was no uncertainty. Our engagement is over. The words landed softly. The consequences did not. Vivian closed her eyes. Her bridesmaids moved toward her. Her mother reached for her hand. Lucian did not stop them. He simply turned away. That was the end of the performance. The guests were asked to leave with dignity. The kitchen team received full pay and a bonus for the disruption. The musicians were paid for the whole evening. The servers were told their tips would be honored. Mara made certain of that herself. Before she left the ballroom, she found Tessa near the coffee station. "You did good," Tessa said. "We did our jobs," Mara replied. Tessa glanced toward Lucian. "You think he will do his?" Mara looked at him across the empty dance floor. "He has to." That night, Mara accepted Elaine Porter's offer at the Halcyon Hotel. She left Vescari Estate in the waiting car. Lucian did not follow her. He did not call. He did not send flowers to make himself feel better. For 6 weeks, he let his actions speak where apologies could not. The board stopped the transfer. Matteo faced the legal consequences of his own choices. Vivian's access to Vescari accounts and operations was removed. The estate hired an independent review team, and Lucian made one change that affected every person who worked under his name. No major event, contract, or operational decision could move forward without an independent operations sign-off. The position had real authority. The person holding it could stop a payment, delay an event, question a guest list, and require answers before the damage reached the people at the bottom. Lucian offered the role to Mara. She read the contract twice. Then she brought it to a lawyer who did not work for Vescari. Lucian encouraged that. When she returned, Mara had conditions. Her authority would be independent. Her staff would receive written protections. Her salary would reflect responsibility, not gratitude. And she would retain the right to walk away from any meeting where she was treated as decoration. Lucian signed every condition. Mara accepted the position, not because he had asked, because the work needed someone who understood that every system had people inside it. 3 months after the wedding, the Vescari estate held another event. Smaller, quieter, no cameras, no blue flowers. Mara stood at the edge of the ballroom in a dark green dress she had chosen for herself. Lucian approached, then stopped a respectful distance away. "You look happy," he said. "I am busy," Mara replied. He smiled. "I have learned that those are not the same thing. You are learning." "I am trying." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lucian looked toward the courtyard. "Would you have dinner with me?" Mara studied him. "Is this a business meeting?" "No." "Is it an apology?" "No." "Then what is it?" "A question." She looked at the open courtyard doors, at the work still waiting tomorrow, at the man who had once mistaken her silence for invisibility. Then she gave him the smallest smile. "One dinner. And I choose the restaurant." Lucian nodded. "Of course." He offered his hand. He did not take hers. He waited. Mara placed her hand in his. Not because she needed his power, because he had finally learned to share it. And in the room where she had once been treated as invisible, Mara Reed walked out carrying nothing but her own choice. Would you have walked away after the slap? Or stayed long enough to make the truth speak?